Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and so delighted to have with us today, always an honor and very timely, Tom Beccaro is back with us today, the author of his latest book called The Lessons of the American Civilization. Let me tell you, it's a short book, but a powerful book, and you may want to check that out. He is the former chairman of the California Republican Party. He's healed now. He's the author of two historical perspectives, The Divided Era and The New Conservative Paradigm. He's a columnist for Fox News, Fox Business, and Epoch Times, and the publisher of thepoliticalvanguard.com. And you can go to tomdell.com. That's his website, tomdell.com. Tom, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Always good to see you.
Thanks for your time. We honor it greatly. Hey, I'm just kind of curious. With your governor down there doing a podcast, is it backfiring?
Well, you know, the great thing about Gavin Newsom is that he is so phony that everybody realizes what he's up to. No one takes him as, you know, suddenly finding the light, you know, of sincerity. So he's running for president. So he's got to say things now that appeal to the country. The problem is, you know, his record. And it's not a short record. It's not an accidental record. USA Today ranked California, are you ready? 50th in affordability and 50th in opportunity. California has had zero job growth since 2023. In the private sector. In fact, it's lost 176,000 jobs in that time, and the public sector has grown 180,000 jobs, but the private sector has actually shrunk. And then you throw in crime, then you throw in homelessness, you can just keep going and going. And so he's got a hard road to hoe if he's going to make it back.
How does he shake that?
Well, as you well know, in the Democrat Party, it's not what you do, it's what you say, and which is the opposite, really, of, I don't know, that long-standing book you refer to known as the Bible.
Yeah, right.
He, as long as he takes the right positions, he's got a shot. And remember, you can expect at least 20 Democrats to run for president. And then you get on the stage. And then Iowa, who wins Iowa? Whoever gets 15% of the vote, right? So, plus, he remarkably is still popular in California. So they'll have a March primary, and that looms because he could pick up 500 plus delegates. And so they'll take him serious, which is not what happened with her to Harris, because she was so weak in the polls in California. They didn't take her seriously, and she dropped out of Iowa, which I predicted. I was the first in the country to predict she would drop out.
So I'm sure he sees himself, but does the DNC see him as the rising star?
Well, the DNC allows people to speak like that woman from Texas, that woman from Queens. We all know who I'm talking about. Yeah. So they don't stop people in this regard. There's a good deal of them who believe that you throw punches. That's how you get ahead. So they'll take whoever can win in their mind. Okay. And keep in mind, it's a long time in politics.
Yeah, it is. And then one other question along this vein, is Kamala the foreseen governor of California?
Well, the case for her running is that it's a big position, and the early polls show that she would clear the field. The case for her not running is that there's three tough jobs in politics: mayor, governor, and president. And you have to work. And she's averse to work, literally. So, and California is in deep trouble. So why would she take on a job where the results are going to be hard to find? So I say it's 50-50.
Does Nancy run or does she bail?
Nancy.
Pelosi.
Oh, for governor?
No, just for re-election.
Oh. She's still a very powerful fundraiser. But sooner or later, she's got to hang out with her grandkids like Barbara Boxer did. So I say if the polls look bad, she'll drop out.
Okay.
Meaning for other Democrats, not for her. She could get elected. The locust could come down on her district and they'd still elect her.
Tom, you can say those things and get away with it. The other thing, I'm just curious, how we just don't see anything in the news lately about the Southern California fires. Can you give us a reality check? What's going on down there?
The mayor, it turned out, was dishonest on TV. Karen Bass said, oh, no, this is going to happen quickly and yada, yada. No, they still haven't allowed them to clear these areas, these homes. 4 permits have been handed out. It's going to be years, and which is a big deal because that's a huge part of the state economy, LA. And so that's the reality of it. They are dragging this out. They're going to want to, they're not going to let them rebuild simply as it was, even though they said that as well. Obviously, there needs to be upgrades. In fact, that's the whole problem, is that there isn't sufficient firefighting infrastructure, whether it's the fire hydrants or fully funded department. So this is going to drag out. The Democrats lied about it, and hello. I mean, that's what you're seeing across the country. Look at Amy Klobuchar, who a while back I thought, well, maybe this person will be different. Going on TV in Wisconsin saying that we don't want Elon Musk deciding this. Yet 77% of the money in that court race is from out of state, from Soros and people like him. That's unbelievable that she would lie like that, but that's become the norm.
Wow. I want to come to the other topic at hand and kind of dealing with censorship. It still exists out there. It's just maybe under the covers a little bit. But censorship, not only in media, the consequences of it, how threatened do you think our free speech rights are these days?
Well, a lot less so than if Harris would have won, because she believed that government had a role in determining what information is good and bad, which is the very opposite of what our founders. In my book, The Lessons of the American Civilization, I say that dissent is the mother of democracy. And what I mean by that is your ability to say no to government, and I wrote about this in my recent Substack article, your ability to say no to government is the beginning of democracy. Because without that basic right, and of course this goes back many, many years, in the Magna Carta, you had the right to redress the government, or at least that was part of it. Now, not everybody did, but it was the start. And what does redress the government means? I mean, you say to the government, this isn't working out, you need to help us and change things. Of course, dictators don't allow you to do that. Look what Hamas did recently to beat someone who was redressing the government, beat him to death. So that if you don't have that, and where did it start in America? Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, was a great example of that. In America today, the government is doing it much less so, but because of the size of the bureaucracy, the ability to do that remains limited. And, it's great that Trump is pushing back on these institutional things, but I'm concerned worldwide. Look what happened in France. You had a popular politician that was slated to win 2 years from now, it looked like, in people's minds, and she was banned from running and found guilty. Well, can we trust that verdict? Look what's happening in England, where the Magna Carta started. In England, you publish opinions online and you can be arrested. Same with Germany. These are huge mistakes. They're made by big government people who think they know what's better. And that is the dark signal for the world ahead. I'll remind people that the start of Christianity started with a person who disagreed with the establishment and said no. And, you know, when he kicked over the table and otherwise, he said that this is not the way. And without that right, Christianity, you know, he was, of course, crucified for disagreeing. We need to understand that lesson.
So in the meantime, there's something else happening in the United States that will impact free speech. That is the division within media itself. And you have now, under DOGE, the possibility of the defunding of public television and radio. Do we really want state-run media? I don't know if you watched any of those hearings of Chairman Marr or President Marr in front of the committees there. It was just ridiculous. But the point being is, I'm just wondering, with the division in media, where that's going to lead as far as free speech is concerned in America, because it looks like America's just had enough of the baloney.
Yeah. You know, years ago, I want to say way back 2007, I wrote about division in the media, or maybe it was a little later in there in the Washington Times. You know, it's normal for the media to be divided. At our founding, you had pro revolutionary writings and you had loyalist writings. Most of American history, you had that. So that's sort of normal. The difference, and why it's so concerning today in America, is how taxpayer funds are used to help one side. The New York Times recently made a sort of this offhanded admission about Trump pushing back on these things, whether it's USAID spending or the media and all these things. They said this will make it harder for Democrats to get elected. And that's the whole point. In politics, there's only one mathematical equation that matters, which is money equals power. The ability to dispense money is pure power. And if Trump takes this away from institutions like PBS and NPR, which regularly lie to Americans, then it makes it harder for the Democrats to get elected. That's better for free speech. But we shouldn't expect the media. I hate to say this, but if you look back at history, that the human beings have not specialized in objectivity.
Amen. All right, let me take a quick break, because I've been also kind of processing my next question for you on this topic. Let me share to our viewers and listeners a couple of things. Tom does have a website, tomdale.com, tomdale.com. There's the picture of the landing page. And get a copy of his book. Look, this is it's a tool. It's a manual. It's called The Lessons of the American Civilization. There's a picture of the cover of the book. Get that online. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. An honor to have back with us Tom Dale Beccaro back with us, and check out his new book called The Lessons of American Civilization. This is a manual. It's a textbook. I think you'll find yourself writing in the margins. It's not long, but powerful. Check it out. And he has a website, tomdale.com. You can check that out as well. So a couple of quick questions here, Tom.
Perry, if I could really quickly, you said it was a manual. Chapter 13 is literally the top 10 lessons of the American civilization. They're 2 pages each, and they're expressly written so that people can read that, understand an issue, and be able to talk to others about not only what made America great, but how it works and how history speaks about certain issues so that you can discuss this with others. And also, I want to, as I told you, I think the last time when I spoke to Cardinal Dolan and he asked me about America, it's also so important for Americans to understand how important opportunity was. And I made the comparison to Christianity and its start. Christianity was an adoptive religion. It was not imposed at the outset. People took great risks, but by coming to it themselves and taking up this new religion and expressing their free will, think of what the power that involves and how it's changed world history. That same opportunity is what made America great as well. People came here for opportunity, and what big government does, and I said this also to Cardinal Dolan, which is a danger to the Catholic Church, is big government takes away your choices. You and I all remember when Milton Friedman did his free to choose.
Oh, yeah.
We need to remain free to choose whether it's the right to express free will, our religion, and in our government.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. Thank you, Tom. Just one more question as it relates to free speech, censorship. How do we know where the line is from protecting free speech and regulating harmful misinformation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I have over the decades argued that the most important election in American history was actually before the United States became formalized with the Constitution in 1789. It was the debate over whether to adopt the Constitution, which happened in the colonies. And the founders who went on to create the First Amendment, if you recall, that debate was much of it done in the pamphlet. They were pamphleteers at the time, did that debate anonymously. And you had the Federalists saying certain things, and you had anti-Federalists saying other things. And if we had a full session, I can tell you, meaning like weeks of class, we can talk about how some of what the founders said was not accurate, even for its time, and certainly what the anti-Federalists said was not accurate. Despite that, quote, misinformation, the founders went on to say with the First Amendment, shall not. So the issue is you must always err on the side of allowing speech. My good friend Trish Regan had one of my favorite comments of all time on this issue, which is the answer to bad speech is more speech.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that because, you know, we're looking at what Representative Crockett said about the governor of Texas. AOC says wild things. Even Schumer, Senator Schumer, has said things that were just downright threatening. Now, if you and I said that, we'd probably be censored out the door. But the point being is they said it. The Constitution allows them to say it, even though it was dangerous.
Yes, although the Constitution does not allow them to say that while they're sitting in Texas. They're still not allowed to libel people. But, Perry, I suggest that your listeners consider donating to those three people, because the more they talk, the more the Democrats' hopes sink.
Let me swing your attention to what's happening with district courts interrupting the president's agenda. What's your take on that one, Tom?
Well, I've asked people over the years, the three people in all of history that I would want to speak to, right? Obviously, Will Durant, who taught me how to think about history, obviously, Jesus Christ, and Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was incredibly smart and worldly, and his big fear was the courts taking power, assuming power. And keep in mind, a theme in my book that I write about is how power centralizes over time. The Supreme Court did it with Marbury versus Madison. And now you're seeing it dramatically so with these judges assuming this power, which was not what the founders intended. So we have to understand that dynamic. We have to understand that it would get worse. But the two ways to deal with this are simple. The Supreme Court makes a decision which limits their ability to do this, and or what you're seeing today, which is a vote in the House on a bill that will limit that, because the Congress has the right to regulate the courts, if you will. That will pass the House and die in the Senate and be a issue in the next election.
Okay. Do you think it eventually ends up at the Supreme Court?
Well, something like this will, but this is a different issue. It's not an issue on a substantive right for the people. It's an issue on the procedural right of the courts. And honestly, I can't make a prediction of what this court would do. I can tell you what Alito would do, Justice Thomas would do, but I'm not altogether sure of the others.
Okay, because to that point, did Chief Justice Roberts play his hand when he basically said impeaching a judge is not a good thing? Did he just send a signal that he's going to be on the side of a judge no matter how bad it is?
Well, here's a guy who said that Obamacare was legal. He called it constitutionally, called it a tax, yet it originated with the Senate. And anybody who's read the Constitution knows that all taxes must originate in the House. Mm-hmm. So there is warranted skepticism about Justice Roberts. Look, I understand his point of view that if you disagree with the judge, you shouldn't protest in front of their house. That's a risk to democracy. And every decision, look, this judge, by the way, unquestionably should not be hearing any of these cases. He has a clear political bent, and the canons of ethics, I've been an attorney 38 years, says that judges should avoid the appearance of impropriety. You know, his daughter is intense about this. He's intense, his wife. But at the end of the day, I understand why he said that. But if he voted not to do anything in this regard, it wouldn't shock me.
Okay, because this is pretty interesting. To that point, though, it appears that all of this issue, as it relates to this judge trying to interrupt deportation, is now tied up in the appeals process, because just the other day, 17 more people were deported to El Salvador. I don't know. Do you know where this thing lies? Because it's still happening in spite of the fact that he doesn't want it to happen.
Yes, it's interesting. It's interesting. Look, I think there should be a two-track thing here. I do think that they should continue to appeal and move forward with that. But I also think it's very important that they I understand why a lot of Americans are confused. They came across illegally. Why can't they just be taken out? There are procedures there. I think they need to move quickly on streamlining a hearing process and changing the law in that regard. But this is going to be tied up in the courts. And look, there are even justices on the left who think this has gotten out of control, as you know.
See where this goes. Good to see you, friend. How you doing otherwise? How do you stay sane?
You know, if you saw the bruises on my head from banging my head against the wall, but hey, you know, do you remember Casablanca when Rick asked Victor Laszlo why he continues to do this? And he says, you might as well ask me why I breathe. Yeah. And that's my answer, too.
Okay, good to see you. Thanks, Tom, for your time. We value it greatly. God bless you, my friend. Stay in the fight. We need you.
All right, see you soon.
Thank you.